A Soviet battalion urgently assembled at their position, preparing to launch an assault on a German-occupied village across the field. The lieutenant commander warned everyone that during the charge, no one was to shout, especially not the battle cry Ura, because the later the Germans discovered them, the better their chances of a successful surprise attack. Soon, they began their charge, but some nervous recruits, trying to summon courage, still shouted Ura as they ran forward. Instantly, the rallying cry echoed across the entire battlefield. The enemy began firing artillery non-stop, shells raining down among the rushing soldiers as the Soviets surged forward through fire and smoke like a relentless tide. The Soviet shouts completely alarmed the Germans on the other side, who immediately regrouped, rushed into their trenches, mounted their machine guns, and opened a fierce counterattack. In an instant, countless Soviet soldiers were killed or wounded. The battlefield was filled with screams and explosions, the sounds of gunfire and artillery never ceasing. An instructor pulled a soldier to his feet, but a second later, a shell exploded nearby, blowing off the soldier's lower body. A terrified recruit witnessing the scene froze in shock, collapsing in the middle of the battlefield and laughing hysterically. The German machine guns kept firing. One soldier fell on the barbed wire, and those behind him stepped over his body, continuing to advance. Another soldier had just cut through the wire when a bullet struck his head, killing him instantly. The commander hurled a grenade toward the enemy position, and his men seized the moment to storm into the trench, engaging the Germans in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Then the commander led his troops into the village, fighting house to house. Their reckless determination terrified the Germans, and soon many began retreating in panic. The recruit who had lost his mind was still sitting in the open, laughing blankly, when a burst of machine gun fire sent a grenade flying, ending his life in an instant. Finally, as the defeated Germans retreated, the Soviets captured the village, but at a terrible cost. In this single assault, more than half of their company had been lost. They began clearing the battlefield and rescuing the wounded. A young soldier hid in a trench, trembling uncontrollably. It was his first time killing a Nazi. A veteran took out his canteen to calm him down, but was shocked to find a bullet lodged in it. He stared at it in disbelief, realizing how close he had come to death and feeling lucky to still be alive. Meanwhile, the commander studied the map and discovered that the village was surrounded by German forces on 3 sides. If the Germans launched a counterattack, their current manpower and firepower would never hold for long. The commander suspected a mistake in the higher command strategy and immediately reported the situation to headquarters, requesting reinforcements and additional weapons. The regiment's response was to order them to keep holding the village, without any reinforcements, and even demanded that they assist another nearby unit in attacking the next village. Hearing this command, the company commander was furious. They had already lost half of their men in the last assault, and now, instead of getting support, they were being told to help another unit attack. Wasn't this just sending his soldiers to die? Seeing the company commander question the order, the regimental commander grabbed the phone and said harshly, "I don't care how many soldiers you have left. You must hold the village and assist the other unit in their assault. This is a direct order from the higher-ups. There's no room for doubt or refusal." The company commander was filled with helplessness, but a military order is absolute, and he had no choice but to obey. In the end, the regiment only sent 2 machine gun teams to help the other units attack. Soon, that unit launched a fierce assault on the German-occupied village. Seeing this, the company commander immediately ordered the machine gunners to open fire on the Germans. The gunners were confused at that distance. Their bullets couldn't possibly reach the enemy, and firing would only expose their position. The commander shouted angrily, "This is an order from above. What choice do I have?" The machine gunners reluctantly obeyed, quickly firing off all their ammunition, but it had no effect at all. Because of the Germans' overwhelming firepower, the other unit was forced to retreat halfway through the attack. The machine gun fire not only failed to help but also exposed their position. The German troops, now free to respond, turned their artillery toward them and began shelling their position.
Fire!
The commander yelled for the soldiers to take cover in the bunkers. Countless shells rained down on them, killing some soldiers instantly and leaving many others severely wounded. Braving the bombardment, the commander ran to the field medical station and called on the medics to go with him to rescue the wounded. But just as they stepped outside, a shell struck the medical station behind them, killing a dozen wounded men and medics in an instant. Shell after shell exploded around them, and the soldiers huddled in the trenches, singing songs from their hometowns to ease their terror. When the bombardment finally ended, the battlefield was a wreck. Many soldiers had been killed, leaving the already devastated company in an even worse state. The commander quickly gathered the platoon leaders for a meeting. He told them that the enemy now knew their strength and could launch a counterattack at any time. They had to hold this position no matter what, and no reinforcements would come. From now on, they could only rely on themselves. Just then, a German aircraft appeared in the sky. Thinking it was another bombing run, the soldiers quickly ducked into the trenches for cover. To their surprise, the plane didn't drop bombs, it scattered leaflets offering safe treatment to anyone willing to surrender. The soldiers scoffed at such an act, finding it ridiculous and shameless. But at that moment, the political instructor rushed over in a panic and ordered everyone not to read the leaflets, warning that anyone who disobeyed would face a military tribunal. The instructor's behavior left the soldiers deeply disappointed. They had risked their lives on the front lines, fighting and dying for their country, yet they couldn't even receive the most basic trust. The soldiers stood up to speak for themselves.
Да что вы так страшитесь этих бумажек, ей-богу? Ну что вы впрямь думаете, что кто-то прочтет их и купится на фрицевские обещания?
Все может быть, Басов.
Все может быть.
Повторяю, листовки не трогать и не считать.
Then, the instructor ordered several men to collect all the leaflets scattered near the village and hand them over for him to burn personally. What disheartened the soldiers even more than the instructor's actions was that their weapons and food still hadn't arrived. And now, the higher-ups had sent a special commissioner to supervise the battle. He had great authority, and upon arrival, he immediately criticized the instructor for failing in his duties, saying that on his way here, he saw an open field still covered with leaflets. He went straight to the company commander and demanded that he send men to collect those leaflets immediately. The commander refused outright, saying that area was under enemy fire, and he would not risk his soldiers' lives for such a senseless task. Seeing how firm the commander's attitude was, the commissioner decided to personally search every soldier himself. The soldiers felt humiliated, and one veteran, unwilling to comply, refused to be searched. The commissioner, feeling his authority challenged, pulled out his pistol, cocked it, and aimed it at the veteran's head. After the company commander's strong persuasion, the veteran reluctantly unbuttoned his uniform in shame. Although nothing was found, the commissioner was still not satisfied and insisted on searching everyone one by one. In the end, he actually found a leaflet on another veteran. The soldier had only used it to roll a cigarette, but the commissioner refused to believe him and insisted on taking him back for trial. That veteran had been the first to charge into the village during the battle, and the commander knew his character very well. He immediately called the regimental commander to plead for him, but rules were rules, and no matter how much he explained, the regimental commander demanded he obey orders. In the end, everyone could only watch helplessly as the veteran was taken away by the commissioner. They had barely walked a few steps when German gunfire suddenly erupted. The inexperienced commissioner was immediately hit in the thigh. The veteran quickly rushed forward to save him, dragging him into a shell crater, and managed to save his life. The commissioner's bodyguard, terrified, crouched beside them trembling, too scared to move, ignoring the past conflict. The veteran helped the commissioner bandage his wound, but the man was still ungrateful, hurling insults at him and threatening him with a pistol, warning him not to think about escaping. The veteran retorted,
Дурак ты. Жизни хорошей видеть. Вот и запудрили тебе мозги. Что хорошо, что плохо, не понимаешь.
Да получше вас понимаю.
Да, тогда вперед! Подышался!
Since the commissioner was wounded in the leg and the enemy's firepower still blocked the way, they could only wait until nightfall to move again. As darkness fell, the commissioner kept mumbling to himself, saying that everything he had done was for the sake of the law, and he couldn't understand why everyone hated him and even spat at him. The veteran told him that it was because he was stubborn and rigid, unable to adapt, and that in war, friendship among comrades mattered far more than upholding a heartless law. The commissioner couldn't comprehend this and questioned the veteran.
Ты знал, что нельзя брать листовки. Зачем взял? Ты нарушил закон.
Да один хрен помирать! А так глядишь, кого и прикрыл бы собой в окопе.
Закон для всех один.
Только скажи мне, По какому такому закону я тебя сейчас тащу? Я ведь не обязан, а? Закон, закон. Да по закону мы все должны в гиене огненной гореть. А там, мы только по милости Божьей оказаться сможем.
The veteran's words left the commissioner speechless, and the two sat quietly, looking up at the sky. Just then, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed nearby. It was the Germans launching a night attack. The veteran and the commissioner quickly lay down and pretended to be dead. The German soldiers set up their machine gun right beside them, while the comrades in the village were still completely unaware of the danger. Hiding in the dark, the veteran made a quick move, killing two nearby Germans with his knife, then grabbed their machine gun and opened fire from behind. The sudden burst of gunfire startled the sleeping soldiers, who immediately joined the battle. The Germans were caught off guard and were quickly wiped out. But then, a large number of German troops suddenly charged out. It turned out that the earlier attack had only been their vanguard, and now the main force was launching a fierce assault. Faced with the overwhelming enemy, the Soviet defense line was quickly broken. The company commander immediately ordered everyone to abandon the forward positions and fall back to defend the village, their final line of resistance. As they retreated to the village, the soldiers couldn't help but talk among themselves. If not for the veterans' warning, their unit would have been wiped out long ago. After spending the day together and witnessing the veterans' bravery, the commissioner finally understood his true character and the brutality of war. He told the veteran to go, saying he had already atoned for his actions, and that his own injury would only slow him down. But the veteran would never abandon his comrades. He pulled the commissioner and his guard up, helping them limp toward the regimental headquarters. They hadn't gone far when they were spotted by an ambush of German soldiers, and the veteran was shot dead on the spot. The terrified guard panicked and quickly pulled out a leaflet, kneeling on the ground and begging the Germans to spare him, claiming he was willing to surrender. But the Germans didn't believe him. They picked up a pistol from the ground and ordered him to prove his loyalty by killing his own officer. The commissioner looked at him in disbelief. He had suspected so many people, yet it turned out that the one he trusted most was the coward. In desperation to survive, the guards slowly raised the pistol and aimed it at him. The commissioner glanced at the fallen veteran he had wronged, then turned his head and smiled.
Ты чего? Ты чего?
Mach schon!
Unable to face his own cowardice, the guard chose to take his own life, and the commissioner was shot dead on the spot. A Soviet soldier who hadn't managed to retreat was hiding in a basement. He understood German and overheard the enemy commander's plan. The Germans didn't intend to storm the village directly. They were preparing to launch a massive mortar bombardment instead. He quietly escaped from the basement and ran back to the village to report the news to the company commander. If they didn't retreat now, everyone would be killed. The commander took a head count. Out of the entire company, only 32 men remained. Continuing to hold the village would be meaningless slaughter, but the order from above was to defend it to the last man. The commander couldn't bear to watch his men die in vain, so he decided to have the instructor lead the others to retreat, while he and two veterans stayed behind to represent the company and continue fighting. A few minutes later, a flare streaked across the night sky. Just as the instructor led the men out of the village, the Germans unleashed dozens of mortars, blanketing the village in relentless bombardment. After the shelling, the village was engulfed in flames. One of the veterans was killed in the blast. The Germans began searching the ruins, unaware that the commander was waiting with his machine gun already set up. After a fierce burst of gunfire, countless enemies fell, but the situation was hopeless. Knowing it was pointless to keep fighting, the two survivors decided to withdraw. When the remnants of the company returned to headquarters, they were met not with comfort or praise but with the regimental commander's harsh reprimand. He demanded to know why they had disobeyed orders and retreated without permission, then ordered them to return to the front and redeem themselves. The furious company commander argued back, saying that returning to the village would be sending his men to die, that they were not afraid of sacrifice, but they couldn't accept dying for nothing. With no other choice, the regimental commander called him into the tent and told him the truth. From the day they had captured the village, the Germans had mistakenly believed they were facing the Soviet main force. The higher-ups had discovered this and deliberately ordered them to hold the village and assist in further attacks. The real purpose was to convince the Germans that this was indeed the Soviet main army. Now the Germans had taken the bait, concentrating massive forces to counterattack the village, while the real Soviet main army launched its own offensive elsewhere. Their task was to pin down the German troops so the larger army could achieve victory. Hearing this, the company commander finally understood. His unit had been used as cannon fodder all along, which explained why reinforcements and supplies had never come. After a moment of bitter disappointment, he accepted the order. In the film's final scene, the company commander led his men back toward the village without looking back. No one spoke a word along the way, because they all knew this time there would be no return. In war, sometimes a few must make the ultimate sacrifice for the victory of the whole. This was the Battle of Rzhev, known as the meat grinder of war, one of the most tragic battles of World War II. It lasted from January 1942 to March 1943, causing more than 2 million casualties on both sides, with the Soviet Red Army losing over 1.7 million men, 4 times as many as the Germans. Yet the Battle of Rzhev was overshadowed by the Battle of Stalingrad, and few people today even know what happened. In fact, the Rzhev campaign played a crucial role on the Eastern Front, tying down massive German forces and contributing to the eventual destruction of the German 6th Army. Without Rzhev, there would likely have been no Soviet victory at Stalingrad. For those who fought in this battle, they were nothing more than numbers. This is the cold and merciless reality of war, where compassion and warmth are nowhere to be found. And that is where the film ends. Alright, my fellow film lovers, that's all for today's video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.